The school outlawed weapons that day. Yet Jarek entered carrying 6 of them, gleaming nervously under the lights. The alien duelist hailed from a bloodline, renowned for steel, his forearms each gripping a curved blade thrumming faintly, with resonant energy. Learners from a dozen species leaned forward in their seats, antennae twitching, frills flaring, and gill slits clicking in anticipation. This was the Academy's yearly showcase, a duel between disciplines to decide whether physical dominance or mental craft held greater honor. Zerk selected the human transfer student, assuming it would end quickly. After all, humans were smaller bones, lighter muscles, slight compared with towering saurids or crystalline insectoids, but the mortal reached for no shield, armor, or lance. Instead, he set a notebook on the dueling floor, uncapped a common pen, and smiled as though preparing for nothing harsher than a pop quiz. Confusion stirred through the chamber. Jarek leveled his upper swords in challenge while his secondary arms twitched uncertainly, puzzled that this mammal would mock tradition with a writing tool. The ritual instructor lifted a translucent limb, declaring the match begun. The alien lunged, expecting a scramble, a plea, perhaps a desperate. Instead, the human leaned aside just enough and scribbled across the page. The hollow projector built into the floor linked with every student's tablet and flared alive, revealing a rough diagram. Vectors, arcs of motion, and force lines spread across the screen. Gasps rippled, for the human had mapped Jarek's strikes in real time. Each swing, no matter how fast, appeared plotted as though rehearsed endlessly in advance. The alien faltered, his blades ringing against safety barriers, striking only air, while the diagram updated seamlessly, predicting his next slash before he committed to it. Nervous laughter spread among classmates. They realized the pen was not parody but weapon of another kind. This duel was no longer flesh versus steel, but instinct against mathematics. Jarek feinted left, spun high, then cut downward from twin angles. Yet the human had already drawn a counterpath, sidestepping a blink before the strike. Sweat formed on the duelist's carapace, silver fluid-like mercury dripping from his arms, while the human's wrist remained steady, pen moving faster and faster. Equations bloomed. Parabolic thrust, kinetic bleed, imbalance, center mass. Every alien student felt pride waver, understanding this was not combat but a public dissection of a warrior's art. The instructor restrained himself from intervening, frills quivering, for the Academy had seldom witnessed honor transformed to humiliation so suddenly. Yet the human did not boast. Midage. He raised the page and spoke, explaining each flaw in Jarek's technique. Here, when he pivots, torque drags the lower arm wide. That leaves these paths unguarded. His upper strike reaches too far, opening this side. It isn't strength, it's leverage. Students scribbled notes, some replaying the holographic overlays. Jarek snarled, not from hatred, but from the sting of having each blow dismantled before impact. He struck wilder now, feeding more data to annotate. Soon the human shifted pace, sketching not only defense but counters, clean arcs where one jab could topple the duelist. Still he never struck back. He circled instead, treating the ring like a classroom board, his opponent a living example. Clan banners flickered above, uneasy whispers rose across the crowd. They call humans fragile, a crystalline student murmured. But what kind of weapon reshapes reality onto paper? Another muttered. He defeats him by instructing him. The match had become less fight than lecture, and even teachers fidgeted at the change. Jarek's panting slowed his swing's stance. shaken though pride still drove him. He unleashed a flurry, but the human's pen wrote entire sentences now, predictions, projected across every slate. It wasn't just sketches. It was analysis, commentary, guidance. The class gasped when words appeared. Step left and thrust upward. I will leave it open. The alien froze mid-motion, staring at the suggestion laid bare before all. To follow meant accepting mercy. To refuse meant admitting fear of the text. His heritage screamed to strike anyway. But deep inside he knew the pen had already settled the ending. For the first time in centuries, the Academy's annual duel became narrative written live, combat translated into literature, each motion a phrase, each feint a metaphor. Instructors traded uneasy looks, unsure whether to end it, while students leaned closer, sensing they were witnessing not disgrace, but the rise of a new doctrine. The human tapped the notebook lightly, as if signaling the next act. And in that pause, Jarek realized the contest was no longer between them, but between tradition and comprehension. His blades quivered above the mortal, who still hadn't raised a hand in attack. The amphitheater fell into silence, tension pressing on every chest as all waited to see whether the alien would swing or if the human's written words had already robbed him of the will. The hush stretched, making every alien stir. Tails flicking, wings rustling, mandibles clicking. Xerxes' limbs shook not from exhaustion alone but from the unbearable exposure of being analyzed before peers. The weight of an entire dynasty. A lineage of duelists famed across half a dozen systems bore down upon him. Still the mortal stood composed, pen poised, ready to turn motion into meaning. The tension shattered when Jarek roared. Piercing cry, then lunged again for blades flashing in a blur. Sparks splintered across the arena, shields, yet the human did not flinch. His pen swept a looping mark over the page, and the projection unfolded a spiral. To onlookers, the spiral became simulation. Every strike Jarek unleashed coiled back on him, paths overlapping until his limbs tangled, and his charge folded inward. He stumbled, nearly toppling. The laughter that followed wasn't cruel but astonished, like the gasp after watching a vessel dodge asteroids at impossible speed. At last the mortal spoke without lifting his gaze. Combat is language. He speaks it in rage and force. I translate. His words echoed strangely, carried wide by the hull's amplifiers. Some gasped, others scribbled furiously. All were held fast by the daring claim that battle itself could be written, read, understood. Jarek's breath rasped, eyes seared with humiliation. He tried a new approach. No frontal strike. He darted back, circling the human, swift beyond most species' sight. Yet each dash left glowing trails on the hologram pathways marked seconds before he made them. The mortal's pen danced, capturing not only positions but intent. Text flared. He will attempt a right flank. Counter, a single step. And when Jarek slashed from that exact path, the human shifted as written, untouched. Murmurs rose sharper now. Generations of teaching had claimed no warrior could read intent so precisely in real time. Instinct alone, honed by lifetimes, might glimpse such moments. Yet here was a newcomer sketching them like idle notes in lecture. Whispers stirred among students. If humans can do this, what else can be reduced to equations? Another voice trembled. Does this mean any warriors' style can be dismantled by writing? Teachers shifted uneasily, sensing the roots of supremacy shaking. The human, however, never gloated. His tone stayed, like a tutor's, calm, almost kind. Strength wasted on wrong direction Fury is noise without shape. Precision. Precision requires thought. Jarek, stung, gambled everything. He hurled all 4 blades outward each. On an auto-return arc, gasps tore through. The crowd, forbidden technique, one that could pierce the arena barrier if misjudged. Swords spun like suns of steel converging from every side. But the pen was quicker. The page filled with rings, arrows tracing trajectories, annotations like geometries. Poetry. The hologram revealed the paths, intersecting in a fatal knot. And then, before impact, each blade met the others. Clashing, tumbling, broken to the floor. Silence thundered in the chamber. 4 heirloom weapons lay ruined, their mastery undone. Jarek stared, shaking, not cut by flesh or steel, but dismantled by diagrams exposing the limits of his art. Yet still the mortal did not claim victory. He raised his notebook high and addressed not Jarek, but the hall itself. This duel is not with him. It is with the belief that strength alone decides. Knowledge, clarity, foresight. These are weapons no armor stops. The words struck like storm winds. Some students cheered, others hissed. But none looked away. For many it was their first glimpse of combat reshaped into lecture, and lecture reborn as revelation. Jarek's pride buckled. He dropped to one knee, not surrender, but collapse under the truth that he had been exposed, not mighty but predictable. The mortal lowered his pen, crouched close, voice soft enough for Jarek alone. I did not wish to shame you, but pride teaches best when it is cut open. This is not your end. It is the start of seeing differently. Jarek's mandibles clicked, a sound between despair and respect. Around them chaos erupted, students shouting, teachers arguing, the hall alive with uproar. The academy had laws, but none foresaw a victory written instead of fought. At last, an elder with silvered antennae rose, her voice steady but tight. Enough. The match is ended. It even. As she spoke, her eyes lingered on the notebook, as though within its pages lay threat and promise alike. Word would spread across fleets and worlds of the duel where a blademaster fell to ink. And in the restless silence, after all, knew this was no end but the beginning of something vast, a tremor destined to ripple through civilization like cracks in glass. The human shut his notebook with a soft snap, pen still in hand, as though the true duel was only beginning. The hall roared long after the blades had fallen. Students argued wildly, voices overlapping in dozens of tongues, wings beating, tails thrashing, claws tapping on desks. For centuries, the academy's duels had been trials of power, rights of honor, that displayed a fighter's mastery. What they had witnessed overturned that heritage entirely. No wound given, no strike landed, yet the outcome was unquestionable. The mortal had won. Instructors tried restoring order, but the energy in the air was volatile. Some demanded disqualification, insisting no real duel had occurred. Others cried it was the most brilliant match in ages. For what triumph could be greater than a victory without bloodshed? In the midst of the uproar, the human stood composed, notebook shut but pen still resting lightly in his grasp. He waited as if knowing the storm would settle into silence where truth would echo. Last, the head instructor descended into the arena, her crystalline robe scattering the bright lights into rainbow shards. Crossed the floor, her voice cut clean through the clamor. The duel is ended, but its meaning remains. The academy must decide what has been revealed here. Her eyes, ancient and sharp, turned on the mortal. Human, what do you believe? You have shown us. He did not raise his voice, yet every ear strained to hear. That knowledge is not lesser than force. That foresight is a blade keener than ill. That combat like language may be read, written, and rewritten. And that a pen, simple though it seems, can end a battle before it begins. The words cut deeper than weapons, resonating in ways the students could not yet name, but would recall long after. To some, it was dreadful. To others, liberating. Jarek, still kneeling, lifted his head. Voice hoarse. Then teach me. If I cannot defeat you, I must learn from you. Gasp. Spread for a duelist of his bloodline. Bowing to an outsider was unthinkable. Yet the honesty in his tone silenced mockery. The human reached out and Jarek clasped his hand with two forearms. In that instant the duel became more than contest, became partnership. In the days that followed, the elders argued fiercely. Some feared such methods would make warriors obsolete. Others saw promise. Conflicts resolved on parchment before lives were lost. Reports spread far beyond the academy, whispered across markets, carried aboard ships. Commanders asked how a human student had toppled a master duelist without striking once. Scholars clamored for diagrams. Strategists feared what it meant for war. Invitations soon flooded in, summoning the human to speak at councils of command, assemblies of defense, halls of strategy. Wherever he went, he boasted nothing. He carried the same notebook and pen, teaching that combat was narrative, that strength alone was hollow without thought, and that humans, fragile though they appeared, were perilous for their ability to turn any battlefield into classroom. Others followed his lead. Not only Jarek but students of many species who had witnessed the duel. They sketched in sparring, analyzing, instead of merely striking. Some resisted, clinging to tradition, but the academy shifted. Lessons changed. Duels now tested both mind and body. The center of it all grew the tale of pen and blades. Jarek transformed most of all. Once proud, rash, he tempered his fury with analysis. He still fought, but his power was guided by foresight. He and the human grew into unlikely allies, their bond whispered across galaxies. A four-armed duelist, and a mortal with a pen, reshaping what combat meant. The legend spread farther. On distant worlds, alien children drew patterns in notebooks, dueling phantoms. On starships, officers debated over chalkboards, scribbling equations beside star maps. And always at the core remained the memory of one human who proved the greatest victories were written, not fought. Years later, when the mortal graduated, the academy held a final gathering in the same amphitheater. No duel this time. Instead, students of every species came, each holding pen or stylus. The head instructor addressed them. Weapons cut the flesh, words cut deeper. Today we honor not the end of tradition but its expansion. May this academy remember that the smallest tool in the right hands can reshape the galaxy. The human stood silent, humbled by the sight of thousands raising pens as swords. He smiled not for the duel long ago but because he had sown an idea that would endure. Jarek stood beside him, placing a blade in his hand. Not for battle, he whispered, but for memory. So your pen and my sword stand together. The mortal nodded, lifting pen and blade high, and the hall thundered with united voices across species. It was not the cheer of conquest, but recognition that a fragile human had shown them the sharpest edge lies not in steel but in thought. And so the duel of ink and blades ended, not with defeat, but with a galaxy forever changed.